Greeting, fellow sleuths. Well, our look at season 2 of Nancy Drew continues on with The Fate of the Buried Treasure. Nancy and the Drew crew clean up the cloud with only 46 hours to destroy the Aglaika. Nick determines that the diebuck box is useless, and it isn't made of the right materials or blessed by the proper rabbi. Ace found an operational diebuck box outside of Boston. They have to feel items important to the spirit while they are alive and a totem from their death. Nancy remembers that their portents were tokens from her death, so Owen Sands should work as a totem of Glaika's death. They just figure out who she was in life for her plan to work. Odette Lamar was a wealthy French heiress and Captain Douglas Marvin's first wife, a brilliant businesswoman, and the Lamar who figured out that the land of France was perfect for and Lamar who figured and it was Lamar who figured out that the land of France was perfect for vineyards. Odette married Captain Douglas aboard the Governance and died of consumption. The sea shanty claims she was betrayed and murdered. Beth shows them a photo of Odette. They make a plan to fill the box with portent sand and find something meaningful to Odette. George Roosevelt will happen at the end of Glaika in time, with Ace and Bess having already written their obituaries. Ace uses Carson for help on finding the diebuck box, as he used Carson to pose as the Hudson family lawyer, and as for the box on behalf of the family. Ace, Carson, and Ryan drive to Boston with Ryan and Carson bantering over Nancy. Ace tries to play the what-if game about a sick chicken, but Ryan and Carson manage to liken it to Nancy. At the Claw, Bess reads over her obituary and Lisbeth sits next to her as she's visiting. They miss each other and Lisbeth is determined to fight for their relationship, which Bess also wants. Lisbeth invites Bess to meet her parents for dinner, to which Bess accepts. They kiss before Lisbeth leaves since Bess needs to meet with Nancy. Inside, George wants to know why Nick thinks they can win all of a sudden. He believes the box can work if they do it right. George's sister Jessie enters as she needs a key for the house. George decides to train Jessie on how to run the Claw, quickly telling Nick that she needs to teach Jessie how to care for their sisters if she dies. Bess and Nancy visit Aristotle, and Henniker's assistant asks about Odette Lamar. He directs her to Captain Marvin's cottage, which holds an accurate representation of the ship's manifest. Before she visits the cottage, Nancy tells Aristotle that Odette was more than a wife. She was an accomplished businesswoman. He finds it irrelevant as she's only relevant to Horseshoe Bay since she married Captain Marvin. Nancy tells the truth about Odette's murder to which tourists record, but he doesn't believe her. They argue with the tourists clapping for Nancy. The tensions between Ace, Ryan, and Carson is significant, with Ryan wanting to know why Nancy needs a diebuck box. He wants it with something to do with the ritual he and Nancy did in the woods, pointedly reminding Carson that he is Nancy's real father. The employee emerges as she can't lend out the box is too valuable. Ryan offers to buy the box. Bess enters the cottage, with Bess telling Nancy about meeting Elizabeth's parents as they might want to work things out. Bess worries she's giving Elizabeth false hope for their relationship, and Nancy recommends saying I love you as its one truth. Nancy finds a painting with Captain Marvin and his second wife, in which she is wearing Odette's necklace. It's enough to prove that Odette's belongings made it off the ship, and if it was important enough for her to be painted in it, then it will be enough for the diebuck box. They search for the necklace in the basement, but find a bed with cuffs attached and chain marks. Someone was desperate to escape. The light goes out and the door slams shut, stopping them from leaving the basement. They eventually fall through the door and escape. Aristotle gives this tour until Nancy beckons him over. She asks what happened in the cellar, to which he reveals that Agnes went mad and was cared for in the basement until her death a few months later. His constant attitude makes it difficult for Nancy to talk with him, so Bess intervenes to ask about the necklace. A hymnal was the only thing recovered, when Nancy confuses why Reverend Hudson's inscription is in the book. He explains that Reverend Hudson provides spiritual guidance to Agnes. The tourists want to know more about the murder, with Aristotle escorting them out. Nancy and Bess steal the hymnal, when Nancy thinks Agnes is haunting the cellar much to Bess's chagrin. Jessie's having a difficult time communicating with the customers and storms into the back room. She doesn't want to try, which leads to an argument between them, as Jessie is still responsible at home, just not at the diner. Nancy tells Nick and George about the imprint of Agnes, but George says that they think it's important enough to use. She asks Nick about a pair of goggles that are infrared goggles used to see ghosts. He reveals his joy of tinkering with things, which he thinks explains a lot about him. He makes the adjustments for the goggles. On the drive back, Ryan asks about the use of the box, with Ace refusing to tell him. Ryan's okay with that since he's helping Nancy, but Carson snaps that he can't buy a relationship with her. Carson answers Ace's phone with Nancy unknowingly being on speaker as she updates him. Ace panics and hangs up, though the conflicting fathers flood Ace with questions. Nancy, Nick, and Bess go to the cottage again. Nancy goes to the cellar while Nick and Bess help from above. She puts on the goggles and sees Agnes's spirit. Agnes scratches into the table frantically. Nancy tries to communicate with Agnes, but the spirit is too tortured. She runs out of the cellar, telling her friends that Agnes's madness is too intense, but they can still figure out what Agnes was trying to say. Ryan convinces Carson about not knowing he was Nancy's father, with Carson repeating that Lucy asked them to protect Nancy from the Hudsons. He thought Ryan was part of the problem, that he wasn't safe. He apologizes for what he took from Ryan, but Ryan, knowing that Nancy sounded off and might be troubled. Carson thinks she might be willing to talk to Ryan, suggesting that he be honest as it helps open her up. Ryan thanks him. Outside the clock, Nancy reveals the Agnes scratch on the table. Ryan approaches and tells her about buying the diebuck box. She thanks him, but knows he wants to say something else. He missed having felt he was robbed of being a father, but still wants to try and be one if she is okay with it. She missed being mildly interested. He asks about the letters, which he recognizes as music notes as he reads music. She realizes she's right, which thrills him, though he leaves so she can concentrate. He texts Carson that something is up with her. Nancy decrypts the notes music sheet to reveal a hidden cipher in the hymnal, realizing that Agnes wasn't crazy. Nancy goes to the church to check the confessional booth, where she finds a secret compartment containing a package. Nancy reps it to find the necklace that both Odette and Agnes owned. Also inside is a letter in which Agnes reveals the truth about Odette's murder, as she found letters from Odette to another woman, a lover, with Agnes having told Reverend Hudson the truth. Hudson was in on the scheme with Marvin and convinced everyone she was mad. Agnes left clues to the truth so she could help future generations. Elizabeth and her parents wait for Bess to arrive for dinner as Bess stands outside the restaurant looking at the group. She can't bring herself to go in, so she tearfully leaves. Nick finds George, who worries that Jessie's last memory of her will be yelling. She finds the situation unfair. Nick hugs her before admitting he loves George. With what he fears losing the most is their relationship, as he wants to be the Igleka so they can have a shot. She doesn't ready to say it back, which she finds good, as he isn't looking to hear it back. They kiss, but she leaves to find Jessie, who's sitting outside the diner. She tells George what their sisters are doing. But George admitting that she isn't mad. She tells Jessie how proud she is of her, and that she wasn't mad earlier. She was trying to rush Jessie, which is George's fault. Jessie finds his behavior weird. George tells her sister she loves her and isn't alone in the world, something she wanted to hear at her age. Jessie worries that George is going to die because of the blood bucket, but George lies that she isn't in any danger. Ace fills out an envelope for his father as Bess sits as she emotionally breaks down that she can't lie or tell Elizabeth the truth, so she walks away. Ace couldn't do that to his father either, so he wrote a letter in case the diebuck box fails. Nancy rushes in, having found the necklace and love letters from Odette to an English woman. Agnes found them and kept them all to tell Odette's story. She wasn't crazy but brilliant, as she used the hymnal to write a message. They have everything they need to trap the Igleka. Nancy and the Druckers go to the store with the diebuck box. They fill Odette's necklace and no one's poured in sand. Nancy summons Odette once. She and Ace carry the box to the shoreline. The box begins to tremble as the Igleka emerges from the ocean, drawn to the diebuck box. As she reaches for the necklace, she turns back to her human self, but recalls his last moment turning back to the Igleka. Nancy tells her about how she knows the truth, and they're going to set history right. Carson and Ryan run to the beach and witness Odette, causing the diebuck box to float in the air and shatter. A ring of seaweed wraps around Odette's neck and pulls her back to the sea. Nancy realizes that the seaweed wrap hurt Odette, and if they can hurt her, they can kill her. Dun dun dun. So, let's take a look at a little piece of trivia surrounding this episode. One month has passed since the events of The Secret of the Old Morgue. Jesse recalls George's blood bucket and how Ted secretly saw George cleaning up the remnants of the bucket. So writing this episode is kind of interesting, and yeah, I honestly do feel upset for what Bess went through, so yeah, but hey, hopefully things will hopefully get better, I guess, so there's that. So overall, I give The Fate of the Buried Treasure 4 Deerstalkers out of 5. When we tune in bed, so we take a look at the next episode, The Drowned Woman. So until then, remember everyone, the game's afoot.